सुमिरत सिद्धि होए, गणनायक करिवर
Sitaram, everyone. I would once again like to welcome all of you who have joined us here this morning at the America Sevashram Shanga for our Sunday morning satsang, as well as all of you who have joined us online on our Facebook page for our live stream. I would like to acknowledge the presence of our resident Swamijis, Swami 𝗔𝗠𝗘𝗥𝗜𝗖𝗔 and Swami Shiveshwarananda Maharaj. And I would like to join Bhaiji Vijay Bisram, who is chairing our satsang this morning and streaming our satsang live, in saying happy birthday to the sponsor of our satsang this morning. Happy birthday to Bhaiji Tribeni Budram, the husband of Auntie Chandra Budram of Florida. We wish him a very happy birthday and many, many happy returns of his special day. And we'd also like to wish little Anjali Rambilal, who celebrated her birthday a few days ago, our Choti Bahin. Happy birthday, belated happy birthday to you and many happy returns. Devotees, my katha is taken from Ayodhya Kand of the Ramcharitmanas, and I've entitled it Bharat, the Sage King. Let us set the scene. Bharat had gone into the forest to meet with Sri Ram in an effort to right the wrong that was committed. The wrong where Sri Ram was asked to vacate the throne, to give up his right to the throne and to go into exile. Bharat went with high hopes of bringing Sri Ram back and himself staying in the forest. But Sri Ram told him that it was not possible for him to return to Ayodhya until his period of exile was over. And so he came to a compromise with Bharat. What was that compromise? That Bharat would rule Ayodhya as his proxy. Bharat will rule as his representative. Bharat asked the Lord to place his feet on a new pair of sandals that he had taken. And then he took those sandals on his head. And he took those sandals on his head all the way to Ayodhya. Bharat placed those sandals on the throne of Ayodhya. In this chaupai, Tulsidas writes,
Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama.
आयुषि होइता राहु सनेमा बोले मुनि तन पुलकी सपेमा आयुष होइता राहु सनेमा बोले मुनि तन पुलकी सपेमा
Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama.
समुझब कहब कर बटुम जोई समुझब कहब कर बटुम जोई धर्मा सारु जग होई सोई धर्मा सारु जग होई सोई
Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama.
Bharat had to take on the responsibilities of a king. And those responsibilities were very weighty. The first thing he did when he returned to Ayodhya was to visit his guru sage Vasishtha. And falling down before him in devout supplication, with folded hands, he said, Gurudev, with your permission, I will take on the responsibilities that Sri Ram has asked me to take. And I also would like your permission, Gurudev, to live a life of penance, a life of sadhana. Without your grace, I will not be able to successfully carry out those responsibilities and simultaneously live a life of penance. And his guru replied, O Bharat, whatever you think and say and do will be the essence of righteousness for this world. It is so wonderful that Bharat, before he took on these important responsibilities of a king, first took the blessings of his guru, his great God-realized guru sage Vasishtha. And thereby he sets an example for all mankind, how we should act in this world. To take Guru's blessings before we embark on any venture is a sure way to success. There was one Swami, highly advanced spiritually, but he couldn't make that final irrevocable union with God. He was able to go into samadhi, But that final state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, that final state of God realization, no matter how hard he tried, he just couldn't get there. He made Herculean efforts, but he was not successful. And one day he went and fell at the feet of his Guru. And he said, Gurudev, it is only with your blessings that I will be successful in my burning desire to realize God. Please give me your blessings. And the Guru blessed him. The next time he went into meditation, to his great joy, he was able to go into that final state of God realization where he merged with God. Such is the power of Guru's blessings. We read in Ramcharitmanas that King Dasrath was not blessed with a son to continue his lineage. And he went to his Guru and opened his heart to his Guru. The same sage Vashisht. And he pleaded with his Guru for help. He said, bless me with a son, Gurudev. And his Guru said, you asked for one son, but the Lord will bless you with 4 sons. And by the intervention of his Guru Dasrath, who only wanted to have 1 son, was blessed with 4 sons. There was a disciple who was asked one day by his great Guru to perform some Hatha Yoga poses for some visiting guests. He had never done those poses in his life, and his Guru was calling out the poses that he should, the asanas that he should perform, and he found he could do those asanas. Even difficult poses difficult for the average Hatha Yogi to do, when his Guru called out that pose, he was effortlessly performing the asana. He was amazed. Later, he was recounting to some brother disciples what had happened. And as he was trying to demonstrate the poses he had performed when his Guru had called him out, he found he couldn't do a single one. How did he do it? It was by Guru's grace. So, Bharat is showing us whenever we are about to take on a responsibility, especially a heavy responsibility, we must seek the grace of Guru. And that is why for us who belong to Bharat Sevashram Sangha, who belong to America Sevashram Sangha, we are advised that when we wake up every morning, before we actually leave the bed, we should sit for 1 or 2 minutes, close our eyes and focus on the mental image of Guru or Guru Maharaj and ask for his blessings to start our day. Bharat installed the padukas of Sri Ram on the throne, indicating that Ram was the real ruler and he, Bharat, was just Ram's proxy. I love this very much. This is the essence of spirituality. God is the doer. Bharat recognized that. Bharat realized that. He was just Sri Ram's instrument. God is the doer. We are just his instruments. In Bharat Sevashram Sangha, we see on the altar the padukas of our Guru Maharaj, and that is symbolizing to us that he is the one in charge of this organization. We are just his instruments. If ever we forget that and we think that we are the ones doing it, then we'll find obstacles in our way. But as long as we recognize that he is the one in charge, he is the one doing everything, we are just his instruments, then success will come in our path. Hanumanji always worked with this consciousness. He was always aware that it was God's power which was making him accomplish difficult tasks. He never for once claimed the credit. Even when Sri Ram praised him for his success in Lanka, in finding Mother Sita, and in burning the evil city to the ground, even when Sri Ram expressed his gratitude that, "Oh Hanuman, what you've done for me, no man, no God, no being has ever done. I cannot look you in the face, my son, because I'm ashamed I will never be able to repay you for what you have done for me." Hanumanji fell at the feet of Sri Ram and said, "Prabhu, what are you saying? You know very well it was your power which accomplished everything. I was just your instrument." That was why Hanumanji was successful in every single venture that he undertook, because he did it with a consciousness that he was the servant and Sri Ram was the master, that he was the instrument and God was the doer. When Guru Maharaj left his physical body, he had appointed Swami 𝗔𝗦𝗔 Maharaj to replace him. One day, late at night, one devotee was telling me that late at night, some devotees came to visit Swami 𝗔𝗦𝗔 Maharaj. So one of the sevaks came and said, "Swamiji, your devotees are here to meet you." And Swami 𝗔𝗦𝗔 said, "What did you say?" And the sevak repeated, "Swamiji, some of your devotees, some of your disciples are here to meet you." Again he said the same thing but more loudly, "What did you say?" And then the sevak understood what he was saying. He said, "Swamiji, some of the disciples of Guru Maharaj are here to meet you." And then Swami 𝗔𝗦𝗔 smiled and he said, "Yes, they are devotees of Guru Maharaj, not my devotees. Go bring them in." He always worked with that consciousness that Guru Maharaj was the one in charge. Guru Maharaj was the one who did everything. He was just the instrument. And so Bharat, taking permission from his Guru before he started his royal responsibilities and asking his Guru's permission to live a life of sadhana simultaneously as he ruled the kingdom of Ayodhya, started his difficult task. In this next chaupai, Tulsidas writes,
Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Rama.
भूषण बसन भोग सुख भूरी, भूषण बसन भोग सुख भूरी, मन तन बचन तजे तीनु दूरी, मन तन बचन तजे तीनु दूरी।
Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai
राजु सिहाई आवरा राजु सुर राजु सिहाई दशरथ धनु सुनि दनर लजाई दशरथ धनु सुनि दनर लजाई
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम 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 श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम.
Sometimes, when one is elevated to the position of a king or a ruler, one can become swollen-headed. Position gets to one's head. Like Nahusha. Nahusha was a king on earth, a very exemplary king. So much so that he was recommended by Lord Shiva himself to succeed Indradev when Indradev had to leave Swarglok to do penance. But the moment Nahusha ascended the throne of heaven, he was a totally different person. All his devotion to God was gone. He said to himself, "Look at me. I am now the king of heaven. It has never happened before that a human being has been elevated to this level." And filled with pride, he asked for Sachi Devi to be his wife. As a result of his sinful thoughts, he was given srap by the Saptarishis, and he became a snake. One ruler of a country recently said, when a reporter was asking him questions, difficult questions he didn't want to answer, he became so angry. He said, "I am the president. How dare you speak to me like that? You're just a lightweight." But look at Bharat's example. The Chaupai says, after bowing his head at the feet of Ram's mother and the Guru and receiving the commands of his lord's sandals, Bharat, the staunch upholder of righteousness, made a hut of leaves at Nandigrama and took up his abode there. After taking the blessings of his Guru, the Queen Mothers, and the Lord's sandals, Bharat did not live in the palace. Instead, he made his home in a little hut in Nandigrama, a village some distance away. And how did he live his life? With his hair gathered up into a knot, and clad in hermit's robes, he dug the earth and spread thereon his couch of kush grass. What was his bed? The earth. He dug a hole in the earth and he placed grass, and that is what he slept on. In matters of food, dress, utensils, sacred observances, and strict vows, he devoutly kept the rigid rules of a religious life. Bharat lived the life of a sadhu. Simplicity in everything. In his dress, he didn't wear a crown on his head. His clothing was simple. His food was simple. Everything about him was simplicity itself. Bharat discarded in thought and body and speech as of no more value than a blade of grass all adornments, rich attire, and every luxury and enjoyment. His mind was only focused in performing his duties as an act of worship to God and in doing penance, sadhana. Such a rare king. We have to search through history, even in our religion. We have to search real closely before we can find another like Bharat, a king who lived the life of a saint. A country blessed with such a king will always know prosperity. And so the Chaupai says that the sovereignty of Ayodhya was the envy even of Indra, king of heaven, and the very report of the riches possessed by Dashrath put to shame even Kubir, the god of wealth. Because Bharat was living a life of denial, self-denial, a life of penance, a life where he was doing karma yoga, working only for God, Ayodhya prospered. Ayodhya became so wealthy materially that Tulsidas says that even Kubir, the god of wealth, was jealous. We hear in so many countries of the world, rulers, they steal money, they are dishonest, they accept bribes, and those countries are bedeviled by so many problems. But Bharat, because he was living the life of righteousness, his country prospered. King Janak was a similar ruler, even though he was a king. His mind was always focused on God. He performed his duties with that God consciousness. And that is why in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, amongst kings I am Janak. The Lord identifies with Janak. We read of King Dharma, another exemplary, unique king. Even though his duties were onerous, very heavy were his burdens, yet he got up early every morning, way before his duties started, and he worshiped Lord Shiva. He will sit and he will jap kare Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. For hours he would worship Lord Shiva. And so his country prospered. He was blessed with sons, 2 sons like himself. They too, seeing their father get up early every morning to worship Lord Shiva, they did the same. And the renunciation was so great that even when the throne was offered to them, they refused. Why did they refuse? Because they only wanted to worship God. They didn't want any other responsibility. So for a country to flourish, for a country to prosper, it needs a ruler who is righteous, a ruler who lives the life of a sage, a holy man. And Bharat sets that example for us. that even though he was surrounded by opulence, by all material things, he was untouched. His mind was only focused on Sri Ram. His mind was only focused on worshipping God and serving God. In this next chaupai, Tulsidas writes,
Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram.
तेहि पुर बसत भरत बिनु राग चंचरिक चिमि चंपक बाग तेहि पुर बसत भरत बिनु राग चंचरिक चिमि चंपक बाग
Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram.
राम बिलासु राम अनुरागी तजत भवन जिमि जन बर भागी राम बिलासु राम अनुरागी तजत भवन जिमि जन बर भागी
Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, 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 Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram.
the prosperity of Ayodhya grew. Bharat had to visit the palace every day to perform his duties. He was surrounded by prosperity, by opulence. He saw wealth everywhere. But Tulsidas says that even though he was surrounded by material riches, yet in that city dwelt Bharat, free from all attachment, like a bee in a garden of champa flowers. It's remarkable. Bharat was surrounded by all luxuries, all evidence of his wise rulership, that Ayodhya was prospering, but yet he was untouched. Yet he was unattracted to any one of these things. We often hear the statement that we must live in the world but be not of the world. Like the lotus flower, it lives even in dirty water, but it is uncontaminated. So also, the wise ones tell us we must live our lives, that even though we might be surrounded by negative energy, surrounded by impurities, yet we must not be affected by them. We must be pure like the lotus flower. Here Tulsidas used a different example, the champa flower. The bee is always in search of colorful flowers from which it will suck the pollen. But the story goes that even though the champa flowers are so colorful and sweet smelling, the bee will not visit the champa flower. And so Bharat is compared to that bee and Ayodhya's prosperity to the champa flower, that even though the wealth was so great and everywhere there was material luxury, yet Bharat was untouched. Those who are true devotees of God are not swayed by material prosperity. I'm not saying again, every time I say this, I give the caution. I'm not saying that we don't need material things. We do. We have material needs. There's a difference between a need and a want. But what I'm saying is that when we desire more than we need, when we want more than we need, then it becomes a problem. And for the generality of mankind, our desires are never satiated. We have wanting and we always want something else, something better. We always seeking for something better. But those who are true devotees of God, they are not carried away by material luxuries. I remember many years ago at our ashram in Guyana, when Swami Purnanandaji Maharaj was there. For those who are a bit older, you'll remember that when you used to buy flour by the bag in Guyana, the bag, after we use the flour, we will cut the bag and make clothing out of it. Remember that sign, live flour? Swami Purnanandaji Maharaj would not even use money to buy cloth to make clothing for himself. He will take the flour bag and have devotees sew his dhoti, and then he will dye it to this color. Sometimes he will wear it for such a long time that the dye would wash out and you will see the sign live flower. When I was in India, in Guru Maharaj's room, you would have thought that Guru Maharaj is the head monk, as the founder of the organization. His room would be something to behold. His room, which the Swamijis keep as a shrine, was a small room, a little hard bed, and a few cupboards that they kept his few personal belongings and articles for doing arti. The Lord himself sets the example of what living in the world and not being of the world is. Lord Shiva, the Lord of the world, he has no home. He lives in the cremation grounds. The one who gives us food, he begs for his own food. Bhiksha Dehi, he says to Annapurnama, "O Devi, give me food." He doesn't wear even a garland of flowers on his neck. His garlands are made of snakes. Like Bharat, he has no crown on his head. His head is in the jata, matted locks. He sits on no throne. His throne is the earth. He sits on the ground. Nachiketa, a young boy, when he was given the boon, when Yamraj said to him, "Nachiketa, ask me for treasure, ask me for long life, ask me for beautiful girls, anything you want, ask me, I will give it to you. But do not ask me how one can escape from me." But Nachiketa replied, "Yamraj, I have no use for your wealth, because even if I were to have all the wealth in the world, when I die, I will not take any with me. I have no use for 1,000 years of life, because 1,000 years will come to an end one day, Yamraj, and I will still have to die. Yamraj, I have no desire for these things. I only want a true knowledge by which I can free myself from the cycle of births, deaths, and rebirths, and be able to enlighten mankind. A rare soul. Nachiketa, young boy, remarkable, that he wanted nothing that we usually are attracted to. He only wanted true knowledge to realize God. Recently, I shared on our Facebook page a story of a sadhu who had found in his wanderings in the forest a large diamond. And somehow the king had a dream that the sadhu had found his diamond. And since he was in need of wealth for his country, he sought the sadhu and he asked for that diamond. Usually we have something precious, materially precious. Somebody asks us, we will not want to give that away because we know its value. It will not be easy to replace. But the sadhu, without a second thought, took out the precious diamond he had found and gave it to the king. Such is a true sadhu, that his wealth is spiritual, not material. So much so that that king returned with the diamond some days after and gave it back to the sadhu. The sadhu said, well, I thought you wanted it, that is why you came. Why are you returning it? The king said, I thought a matter over. If someone like you can give this away like it is nothing, then you must have a more or a greater treasure. I want that treasure which you have, which allowed you to give away this treasure without a second thought. So that was Bharat, like a lotus flower, surrounded by opulence, surrounded by prosperity, material prosperity, but yet he was untouched. His mind was ever fixed on God. His mind was ever focused on God, living a life of absolute simplicity. In this concluding doha, Tulsidas writes,
Bolo Ram, 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 Bolo Ram.
राम प्रेम भजन भरतु भरना यही करटूटी चातक हंस सराहियत ते विवेक विभूति
बोलो राम, 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 बोलो राम।
राम प्रेम भजन बरटू बरना यही करटूटी चातक हंस सराहियत तेक विवेक विभूति
बोलो राम, 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 बोलो
Tulsidas says, for Bharat, a worthy receptacle of Ram's love, This was no extraordinary achievement. Bharat, surrounded by opulence, surrounded by all temptations, but yet he was untouched. Isn't that remarkable? But yet Tulsidas is saying that it is not remarkable. Why? By default, dear ones, we are programmed to run after material things in quest of happiness. All of us, we're programmed by default to seek happiness. And when we can't find it in one thing, we seek it in another thing. It's man's eternal quest. God programmed us like that because if we were satisfied, totally satisfied in material things, we will never seek Him. That is why He placed that thirst in us, that perhaps when we see that we're not finding it in all the things we crave for, we will seek it in Him. Because it's only in Him that we can find that happiness, that bliss which totally satisfies us. So by default, we're programmed to seek happiness in the things of this world. The material things attract us. Sensual things attract us. It's not easy to overcome these. In fact, it's very, very difficult. One holy man was recounting his meeting with a sadhu in the Himalayas. That sadhu had visited this man's great guru, and the sadhu confessed. He said, I wanted to live this life of a sadhu, and I knew that lust was my main enemy. So what I did, I mutilated my organ of regeneration. But yet, he confessed to that great master. He said, still, I'm plagued by lustful desires. It's not easy to conquer of these things which attract us, because as I said, we're programmed to run after them. A few souls now and then, here and there, free themselves from this bondage, this attraction. Why wasn't Bharat, even though surrounded by so much temptations, did not become a victim? Tulsidas says, why was this not an extraordinary achievement for Bharat? He answers, because Bharat was a worthy receptacle of Ram's love. When we become worthy of God's love, when God's grace flows through us, when God's blessings flow through us, then we are able to rise above all these temptations and be untouched. And Bharat was like that. He had the grace of God and Guru. And that was why nothing in this world could tempt him. Nothing could pull him away from the life of sadhana he had chosen. Nothing could thwart him from being the loyal servant of Sri Ram. And that is the example Bharat sets for us, dear ones. Lake sang a beautiful song earlier. This did the other devotees who sang, but this particular song where Lake sang, Nahi chahiye Ranga Mahalya, we don't want the mahal, the colorful palaces, the castles. because we know that they are not what we seek. They will not give us the happiness we seek, but yet we run after them. Then we know that other than for the amount of money that we need, we don't need more than that, or we shouldn't want more than that, but we still go after more and more. We don't want to do it, but we're pulled against our will to do it. How can we free ourselves? Bharat shows us, be a worthy receptacle of God's love. Work for God. Live a life of sincere spirituality to attract God's grace. Once we have the grace of God and Guru, and we're sincere in our longing for God, for realization, then freeing ourselves from the tentacles of worldly attractions is not such an extraordinary thing. We can do it easily by the grace of God and Guru. Dear ones, may the example of Bharat be a burning example to all of us of how to live in this world and be not of this world, of how to live a life continuously focused on God whilst we perform our daily duties. May Bharat's example inspire us to seek God with all our strength. May the Lord bless us that we too can be like Bharat, that no temptation in this world can pull us away from God, that we hold on to the lotus feet of God and Guru with all our strength. May we all be so blessed. Om Shanti, 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 Hari Om.